What does pleasure mean to you? Is pleasure an emotion? Is it an effect of something? What is pleasure?
Pleasure is a really left out piece, and it's starting to shift, which is exciting, but like in the medical conversation, in the relational conversation, it's sort of left out. Everything has to have a purpose, sex is for procreation, and we get healthy so that we're stronger, we move. Pleasure is a purpose.
Mindbend. Non-ordinary and extraordinary states of consciousness for Mindbend Creative.
I've been looking forward to visiting with you for quite a while.
Aw.
I did produce a show that you were a guest on several months back, and I've been fortunate to have guests come into the studio and be able to work with them later. I did make a list of questions, which I normally don't do. It's normally pretty freewheeling, but I wanted to give you like a little structure, maybe at this like kind of erratic and volatile time especially. But the topic is who we are, sex and sexuality, our mentality, relationships, and would you say that ethical non-monogamy is one of your specialties?
Yeah, it's definitely a passion. It's a lived experience.
Yeah.
When I'm interested in something, I do my best to direct my life via curiosity. I have found that curiosity leads to a very interesting, exciting, expansive life. And I also lovingly refer to it as the antidote to fear. I was raised with a lot of fear as a child, and curiosity has been an incredible antidote to that as an adult.
Yeah, something happened. Something happened along the way so that you could access that curiosity.
Yeah, it's a practice.
Yeah.
And I think when I realized this sort of, alternate relationship, orientation that I had, back at this point, over 10 years ago, when I started realizing something was different, I get curious. I just nerd out. I deep dive into try and find any resource I can, read, workshop. And it was a lot harder to find information back then. And I kind of figured out a lot of things, quite frankly, the hard way. And I'm very grateful that there's, I'm by no means the only person, sharing this knowledge and studying this topic. But it has been such a rich addition to my life to understand it, not only, academically, but also as a lived experience myself.
Would you say that curiosity is integral to intimacy?
That's beautifully phrased. Yes. Personally, I think so. I think what I see when I work primarily with couples or duos, and what I see as often sort of the precursor to, the death of a relationship, if you will, is the complete discarding of curiosity. I know what you're going to say. Oh, we finish each other's sentences. That's just called interrupting. We've got each other figured out. We know each other so well. There's no surprises. Well, now what? You're always able to surprise each other. You're always able, ideally, to surprise yourself because you are growing and changing, whether you're actively participating in that process or not. So if you choose not to see that, you're turning your back on curiosity. You're turning your back on the ability to surprise yourself, to have the ability to be surprised by your partner. And what a shame. What a shame.
It's a gift when curiosity is afforded us by others, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it can be scary to get outside yourself and try to look at somebody else. But if you're going to have a successful relationship dynamic or series of relationships, that's part of the work.
Yeah. We're only ever reflecting for each other. That's all we can ever be, as a reflective surface.
The podcast historically has been sort of grounded in the idea of exploring psychedelics at large and then consciousness at larger. And, there's always a tie. Non-ordinary consciousness is, to me, a series of words that I really enjoy. And accessing non-ordinary consciousness, maybe I'm taking a lot of liberties, but so be it in this container. But I do feel like, as a general rule of thumb, there's learning to occur in non-ordinary consciousness. There's growth to occur when we're operating outside of the default mode network, or we're operating outside of habituated routines or addiction. So sex and sexuality, because it is a part of what you do. Sex happens in the work that you do, and most of it is around what does the sex mean to a person, two people, multiple people, and how is that energy engaged in and shared? And I just feel like it's something that we're not constantly doing. We're constantly breathing. We're constantly doing tasks. We're constantly sort of like getting our bearings and adapting and keeping the whole operation going. But the moment of sexual expression is a non-ordinary state of consciousness. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So that's how I think that it fits into this space, and how I want to be able to provide some kind of resource material for people who are also interested in consciousness, whether it's through a yoga practice, meditation practice, a religion they're involved in, an art form that they're dedicated to. I see it as an important part of our lives, and still one that is not as openly discussed, right? There's still a lot of stigma and taboo around our sexual or reproductive or energetic nature that has to do with that part of us.
Well, and I would say, I want to amend actually what I just said. It can be a non, what was the term?
Non-ordinary
state.
Yeah.
And it can also be very by rote and sort of going through the motions. And it's what you imbue it with.
Yeah.
Really, anything. Like anything. It can be a ritual. It can be passive. It's really up to you what to imbue it with, but it absolutely has the capacity to be non-ordinary.
Let's talk about pleasure right off the top. What does pleasure mean to you? Is pleasure an emotion? Is it an effect of something? What is pleasure?
Yes, is the short answer.
Because your brand is Passport to Pleasure.
Yes. For me, I love pleasure is a really left out piece, and it's starting to shift, which is exciting. But like in the medical conversation, in the relational conversation, it's sort of left out. Everything has to have a purpose. Sex is for procreation, and we get healthy so that we're stronger. We move. Pleasure is a purpose. It is physiologically beneficial to us. It is psychologically beneficial to us. There are so many benefits to experiencing all different kinds of pleasure. And we're finally, slowly but surely, starting to have that conversation. And so I love having that as, whether it's a destination, a quality of the journey, whatever it is, to have that be a part of the conversation is really important. When we get into sort of life being so habitual, we forget that, we can do things. Like the reason that we want to do things can be because we like it. That's a reason, because it feels good, because it's pleasurable. That's okay. That's a reason. I want to spend time with you because it feels good.
But there seems to be a kind of societal cap on that. Like it's unreasonable to have too much of an interest in doing something because it feels good or because you want it.
I think when it takes, I think maybe you're kind of alluding to when does it become, addiction or something like that.
It's interesting that you get in there, because that's kind of where I was going to segue next. I wasn't there just yet, but I think, institutionally, just hearing the words like "go for what you enjoy," it's really not how we think a lot of time. It's go so we can sustain, and then squeak in times of enjoyment.
Well, and I think it's important to look at like what kind of pleasure are we talking about? What kind of enjoyment? Because if we're looking at the immediate gratification at the expense of, say, stability in the future, maybe not so much. There's different kinds of pleasure, and we have the advantage as a species with forethought. We can go, oh yeah, I can do this thing right now, but at what cost does it come? If let's use a framework, that comes up in my work all the time. Okay, I have a committed relationship that's important to me. We have children, we have obligations connected, we have a house, we've built this whole life together. And I'm attracted to this other person, and I really want to just get my rocks off. It's going to feel really, really good. Well, if I don't have a relationship agreement in place that protects that core dynamic, I'm putting that entire life that I've built at risk for this immediate gratification. But if I've put some forethought into this and I've talked to my partner and we've created a relationship agreement that makes room for those moments of immediate pleasure, well, now we have a groundwork to work with versus putting it all at risk. So what's the cost? What's the effort you're looking to put into it? I think when it becomes something that is an avoidance tactic, that's when maybe we're getting into some area that's not necessarily a beneficial seeking of pleasure. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I think that if you have someone to guide you like you, couples who have grown into recognizing parts of themselves that might not have been in place at the beginning of a relationship but come to surface later, it's going to be a lot easier to navigate with somebody who they can speak to as an objective resource or somebody who can explore that space with them. Yeah, Ally, there's just so many things I want to try to cover with you in 60 minutes. So, but let me get to the idea of addiction then. When is too much pleasure too much pleasure? When is too much too? I mean, it's not case. It's case by case. It's not universal.
Yeah, I would say a marker to me, generally, as general as you can be, if the cost is more detrimental, like if the cost benefit ratio is out of whack, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it's becoming or when it is a tool to move away from something else. Like we have a whole culture, as much as we, demonize pleasure, we have an entire culture built around avoiding discomfort. So if it's avoiding an uncomfortable conversation with your partner about how maybe your sexual interests have changed and you want to kind of come up with a new agreement, and that's really hard and scary because you've never done that before. So instead, I'm just going to kind of like covertly have other exchanges. That's avoiding something versus I'm choosing to move towards something. I think pleasure as a tool to move towards something versus away from something else is a great kind of framework to look for when it is, more or less beneficial versus addictive.
How did you come to having, I'm not looking for the full backstory, but I'm just imagine that you need to have a real sense of caring for people to be able to be interested in this work at all. Do you think that you do? Do you think you really have like a lot of care for people, or is it not so much the case?
I don't give a fuck. No. No, I think, well, I'll relate it to something. The short answer is yeah, because if I didn't, they wouldn't be able to break my heart so much. I think I simultaneously am in love with humanity, and then sometimes I'm just so frustrated at like a large scale.
Yeah.
But that's I don't know if this is the right word, but that's the dichotomy of the human experience in a sense, is like you can't give yourself the gift of being able to love if you're not willing to take on the risk of pain and disappointment. Pain is inevitable. You don't get to choose which experiences you shut down, right? So if I don't want to, feel hurt by other people or humanity in general, I don't get to love them either. It's not one or the other, right? You don't get to only pick the good feelings. So yeah, just back to your question, what part of my experience when I first started understanding that my relationship orientation might be a little bit different than what I was told is the only option. I never understood the bad rap that jealousy had. To me, jealousy was exciting. When I heard about my partner's other experiences, I told them, tell me when you think someone's cute. I liked how I felt when that would happen. I didn't have words like compersion back then, which is commonly referred to as the opposite of jealousy. And it's empathetic joy. So it's when you feel joy or pleasure from your partner experiencing joy or pleasure with someone else. And I love seeing or hearing about people that I love experiencing pleasure. I literally feel pleasure from that. If I get to literally see it happening, even better. But that is something that to me tells me that I do care, because I love when people can feel just the incredible experience of being human and connecting with another human.
That can happen in all sorts of ways, right?
Oh,
Connection.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some of the places where you've experienced connection? Like where do you think people are finding connection? What are some common places where people are experiencing meaningful connection?
Do you mean like literal physical places? Or?
Well, yeah, but places or times or settings or whatever it is. Like what comes to mind when you think about, we'll get a little abstract here too. Because it's easy to spend a day in isolation, right?
Yeah.
And then it's easy to wind up in a place where connection is actually occurring and maybe you're not necessarily aware of it, but you're getting some kind of effect from it. that can be therapeutic in a way. But when you think about like how people are experiencing connection, in a world that can be very isolating and polarizing.
Yeah, we seem to have more and more opportunities to isolate in our culture. But as the nature of anything, there's a balance. So there's also this equal pushback for like, IRL connection, like really people coming together in community. And I love to see that. I think of connection as just part of like the ultimate potentiality of being a being, especially one that's conscious of its own experience. And it's also a practice. This is like we touched on a little bit earlier. You don't get to pick and choose which experiences to feel. You either are practiced at feeling or you are shut down. So even when you're isolated, you still have a relationship with yourself. So that is still an opportunity to practice connection, because I'm only able to experience connection with you through the connection I have with myself. If I'm shut off to that, there's only so much we can connect. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm just sorry, you said literal places, like all that to say anywhere.
Yeah.
Grocery store, coffee shop, sure, you can go to a sound bath, all of that. If you're practicing, any opportunity, any space is an opportunity for connection.
I'll say that some of my most joyful commonplace connection experiences happen in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I love my mom used to do this when I was a kid, and it always embarrassed me, but it was emblematic of her desire to see an interconnected community. She would have conversations with people as they were checking out our groceries. She'd start a conversation with the clerk, and it always mortified me. But like I do the same thing. Like I'm chatty and I like to engage. And when you can be in the aisle with a stranger and talk about soup choices or something, like that, I think that's a beautiful thing.
I do. I'm a foodie, so like I love a foodie, vegan foodie, but I love food is very much a connective tool to me as well.
Yeah, and grocery stores are just so trippy anyway. Like they blow my mind, especially I haven't done a lot of grocery shopping in other countries, but I can't believe how many groceries we have here.
The abundance of choice.
Yeah, the abundance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is selfish? What is selfish in your frame of reference?
Selfish is just self-focus.
Selfish is
just self-focus. I think as far as the meaning we've attached to it socially is there's like a negative connotation with it. But I think that's more about kind of what you were talking about before, that balance of like when is pleasure, not necessarily like when is it too much. I think that's the negative connotation we have, but it's sort of been skewed as like any selfish act is like negative. We have to be selfish. It's kind of like how people talk about ego, like, oh, you have like so much ego, like get rid of your ego. Like, no, your ego is keeping you alive. That is a very important part of your experience.
Yeah.
So selfish is an important practice. And again, looking at, is it prohibiting you from connecting with other people? Then maybe we're a little too self-focused and we can like kind of loosen those boundaries a little bit.
It's pretty fascinating to dive into somebody else's energy that way. To have sex with somebody, like it's a pretty wild thing.
It's so cool.
It's a really wild thing, and I think that it's isn't it an energy that we haven't like learned how to use in a really like planet changing way?
Oh no, I think that would be very presumptive. The modern world, as we like to consider it, perhaps not, but it's an energy that's been studied and engaged with for millennia. Like it's a palpable tool that has been used in earlier civilizations. And I mean, a more commonly known access point for that would be like Tantra, for example, which is not specifically sexual, but it is that sexual, sensual energy and connectivity. And that's far older than our, current modern ideas about sex.
Yeah. I guess I still feel like it could be more common knowledge
nowadays. I think there's been sort of
eras.
Time is what's the word? I can't think of. There's an ebb and a flow, right? It's
jellyfish?
Not like jellyfish. It's easy to think, progress, time, everything is like,
right.
and that's just not the case. It's so easy to go, oh yeah, back then they were so primitive and like just different. There's a lot of things we're rather primitive, in my opinion, about these days, and sex is one of them. We treat it like there's life and everything involved in that, and then like over here there's sex and let's not talk about it and it's not that important and like judge yourself and all. There is no life without sex. It is the connective tissue. It is a connective tissue, I should say. And so that sort of oh, wow, I'm not going to be able to say this word, ostracization.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank you. Of that has been really detrimental, I would say, to our species. But it's, whether it's unbridled censorship or unbridled, untethered sort of diving into pleasure with no boundaries or anything like that, either extreme isn't particularly masterful. So the avoidance of, or, the overindulgence of, is kind of like the two extremes as I see it. Neither one of which are we learning to use it as a tool in any way. It's just another medium of humanity, if that makes sense.
Okay. That's good or bad that it is just another...
It's neither.
It's nothing. It just
is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. From reading a little bit about you and listening to things where you've spoken, I have the understanding that your ethical non-monogamy life began around 2016.
Yeah, that's when I first started just exploring it. I had been, the term I use is serial monogamist.
Yeah.
Get into a relationship about the same amount of time with one person, become single for about the same amount of time, get into the next relationship, and just, that pattern would repeat. And like I mentioned earlier, I kind of noticed there was something maybe a little different about me. So I broached with a few partners like, hey, maybe we bring someone else in. And, I was only dating men at the time. And so threesome with another woman was generally what was put on the table. And I was like, great, gangbusters, let's go. Never manifested. But then what became my last monogamous relationship, we made an agreement to have an experience with a separate person when we weren't together. This person traveled a lot for work. And so I was like, when you're on the road, if I'm not with you, like you meet somebody, just, get a picture consensually and let me know how it goes after. And I'll just summarize and say that we had no tools, no language, that we did our best and it imploded. There were other issues in the relationship as well. But that's when I realized, because my experience was actually that I did end up connecting with a friend of mine, actually, external to that relationship, consensually. And it was so affirming because I had an experience of what I call expansive love. Being with that other person deepened our friendship and our relationship, but it also poured very much into my primary partnership with my partner at the time. And he was very much a part of the experience for me. And I had never experienced anything like that because I hadn't had an opportunity. And so it was such a visceral, physical, visceral experience of this is real. This is foundational to who you are. That I realized, okay, this is something I have to explore. I don't want any more emotional casualties on my conscience. So I'm going to start exploring solo after we, decided to end the relationship. And I want to understand what this is. And I didn't have any language or non-monogamy or any of that.
You weren't studying anything about that. What was your life like prior to that moment? Did you have a vocation that you were deeply involved in, or what was your identity of yourself?
I mean, I was, the 15 years of my adult life, I was in the entertainment industry and writer, performer as well. And marketing was also part of my background. And, as far as work that, I guess in a sense that was a vocation.
You could assert yourself though. You knew how to handle yourself in front of an audience, or you could share words with people. Yeah, okay.
Definitely. But I didn't. I've always been interested. Looking back, hindsight is 2021. I like to say, not 2020 because that was terrible. I've always been fascinated by human connection, and so being a trained performer, that's still all about how humans work, how humans connect. What is that? What is that experience? I ended up going back to school briefly to study psychology and see if that's an avenue I wanted to pursue as well, becoming a clinical psychologist. And I loved it. And even marketing is understanding how people work, how people think, what moves them,
Focus
what connects
groups.
them. Oh, that is a less sexy version of that, but no, but it's all story and messaging and communication and that's
potentially manipulation.
Well, yeah. I mean, and we're talking about the extremes of anything, right? Yeah. It's just a tool. Mm-hmm. How you use it is what assigns, good, bad, etc. It's, like money is a big one. It's just an energy, right? Money is not inherently evil. What you do with it can be for benefit or not. It just makes you more of whoever you are. It's not itself assigned with a negative or positive. We kind of went on a tangent there. Bring me back.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen more. It's going to happen. This is Mindbend. We're going to bend and twist all over the place. Thank you, audience, for bearing with. So I want to flash back to 2016. You start to, really sort of investigate this concept a little bit more actively, and you've been aware of it ever since. And at some point, you found your skill set appropriate to engage others and discuss this with others, or you started to amass some kind of knowledge base that you felt like you could assert yourself as an expert or somebody who has some, at least specializes in.
Yeah.
So it all kind of fell together cosmically for you to be working in this space. How have you seen that set of words or that concept or that awareness of ethical non-monogamy? How have you seen that change since you started to think about it?
Oh my God, it's I've been vegan since 2006, and it's been the degree of change and just like the social acceptance, understanding, awareness, all of it, very similar to the understanding and awareness of non-monogamy. There's still a lot of stigma to move through for sure, but the level of interest just generally and the availability of the language on a mainstream stage really is just night and day difference. I mean, there's just such a more widespread conversation about this. And there's pros and cons to that, because there's certainly a lot of misuse of terminology just through ignorance, really, more than anything. And, like you said, manipulation of a common thing you might hear is, narcissists can kind of manipulate therapy speak to control their partners. And the same can be said for relationship dynamics and polyamorous language and things like that. That can be used by avoidance or people with narcissistic traits to manipulate things as well. That's why I'm so passionate about education and helping people understand relationship dynamics as a whole, not this like one size fits all. Because when you're unaware of something, it's very easy to be manipulated. Oh, well, I'm dating somebody and he says he's poly, or she says she's poly, or they say they're poly. They have more experience than I do. So yeah, if they tell me something, the fact that I'm getting jealous isn't poly. Oh, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be getting jealous. Like, they know better than I do. Jealousy is perfectly normal, first of all, can be perfectly healthy. It's just a tool, just a self-development tool to use to understand yourself better in your relationship. It's nothing to be avoided. But when you don't know what you don't know and you don't understand relationship dynamics in its entirety, that relating is an actual skill set, it's really easy to get manipulated by people who have fancy words.
Sure. So you think that the fancy words are more people are it's more people are aware of some of these words now, so there's less manipulation? Is that what you're...
No, I'm saying there's more awareness, so there's potentially more manipulation, okay. But there is also more accessibility to education than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it is easier to learn a lot about this yourself.
If there's been change since 2016, how much change has there been since 1996 or 2006? Like what has changed in people? Because I come from a very grandparents together for 60 years, parents together for 50 years. Like there was absolutely nothing that would ever look like anything that we're kind of discussing today for the most part. But are more, I know that you can't claim to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth about everybody, but like, are more couples feeling compelled to try something different, or is the world more distracting, or are we getting more in touch with how wonderful everything actually is sometimes when we pay attention, so we want more of it? What's changing to have this be more commonplace?
I don't think it's any one thing.
Sure.
I'd say I'll compare 2 points in time. So in 1997, a book called The Ethical Slut came out, and that saw, a peak in public interest in non-monogamy and polyamory and kind of understanding what all that was. Because up until that point, it was like something hippies did, free love, 70s, we moved away from that. And that peak came and that peak went. And we've had some pretty pivotal books come out in the recent years that have spiked this interest. Again, some movies, things like that. And a tool we have that we didn't have back in 1997 is actually social media. And look, there's pros and cons to everything. But social media, some of the pros that I see here is it's a conversation. We can keep this conversation going. We have access in new ways to see new ways of being and different lifestyles and experiences than our own. We have access to resources like we've never had before. To me, that's exciting because ideally that can keep this, moment from just being a blip, and it can expand it into, we're going to actually progress in how we relate instead of kind of regress. But it's like, also anything with progression is regression. There's always kind of that ebb and flow, push pull with anything in nature. So.
Are you able to speak to psychedelic experiences that you've had?
I can speak to my own.
Yeah. That you've had. Have you gleaned insights about human sexuality or intimacy or the relationship dynamic through any particular experience, psychedelic in nature?
I think something that was interesting for me, let me see how to kind of concisely say this thought. Because the short answer is sure, yeah.
Something we haven't gotten into a whole lot here, like insights pertaining to sex and sexuality and relationship dynamics when having, or, in the aftermath or the integration of a psychedelic experience.
I think it's the realization. I've always had, for whatever reason, I've always had very direct access to my sexual energy. And, whatever modality you study, Kriya is a word that's used, just that sort of sexual essence that kind of shoots up through the core of your being. It's always just there. I can access it with breath. I never knew that was a practice. And I've since learned how to utilize it a little more structure.
Kriya is the term that you
Kriya
use?
is a term, I believe it's comes from Kundalini.
Okay.
But it's just that life force, that sexual life force energy. Yeah. It's represented by sort of a coiled snake at the base of the spine that kind of shoots up. And it's just always been there, and I know it's there, and I can play with it if I want to in the car, driving somewhere. I can utilize it in a sexual experience with someone. It's always there, and I never really had any understanding of what that was. And then having had some really transportational sexual experiences and then exploring psychedelics, I came to the understanding that these are all just avenues to a shared experience. I can go to sort of the same place with psychedelics, with sexual experiences. It's all just different entry points.
Did you have any kind of revelation ever on the topic of sexuality, though?
I see what you're saying. More of did that bring pieces together?
Yeah.
And
it's okay if you haven't. I just didn't know, if it was legible enough to translate later, or.
And so I'm trying to figure out how to. Should have prepared this. Trying to figure out how to sort of translate this.
If there was any particular insight that you took away, or a moment that was revelatory for you, or you weren't expecting, or a memory that you held on to, or something that you thought played in directly to how you view.
Yeah, I think this is the most easy, because there's a number. This would be the easiest to sort of articulate. But just when it comes to our experiences, I see a lot of individuals, couples, people make this really important, what I would consider a mistake, when they make other people responsible for their experience. You've made me mad. You've upset me, and it's your job to make me feel better. Psychedelics really helped me understand my responsibility in my experience. So I don't control other people. I don't control the world around me. I don't create my reality in the literal sense, but I do control my experience of it. And it really helped me kind of separate that and find more autonomy and command over that, especially in relationship, because I definitely had a history of some codependency and things like that when I was monogamous. And that was a huge part of shifting that tendency in myself, working with psilocybin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In the work that you've done and the work you continue to do, would you say that primarily the work you do is with couples?
Generally, yeah.
Generally, yeah. And as like an outside consult or someone that's brought in or remotely, in person, online?
Generally online.
Online, okay,
yeah.
cool.
Like, and it started actually in person. I've been a community organizer, event producer, sort of, leader in the sex positive community in LA. So I would find myself, that's kind of how this started, is couples would seek me out, or individuals as well. Just, I'm entering this space. What is this? How did you get here? Da, da, da. And I love talking about it. I love bringing people to their first play party, all of that. And honestly, like, we're in 2025 now. In 2023, I left my last role as VP of marketing. And I was like, I'm ready to do something for myself. And like, what is that? And how do I bring together all the things I care about? And it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, oh, I'm already doing it. I just have to formalize this in a way that I can structure and scale it so I can reach more people as efficiently as possible. Like, I have a knowledge base and an experience base that I already love sharing. People are coming to me for this already. So how can I do this in a bigger way? And that's what kind of started the making it like a virtual online offering as well.
Are most of your clients or clients are they American?
The majority US, UK, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you noticed differences in the ethical non-monogamy conversation, or even just in sexual dynamics from country to country?
Oh yeah, that's why I call it passport to pleasure. It's that journey, and I think it's like, I literally think of it like a passport, like all the different stamps you get, right? Like all the different skill sets you can build in relating, and the excitement that most people have when it comes to literal travel. I want people to have that same excitement for the inner journey.
That's the connection there.
Yeah.
That's
so
wild.
Very much so is the short answer. And something that's really like wild. Like I'm a nerd. I love language. I love all the terminology. It's just, to me, it's a conversation starter, not the end of the sentence. Like this is like, oh, what does polyamory mean to you? In other cultures, like when, I went to Easter Island, and Rapa Nui, as it's known locally, and that's a communal culture. So relating is communal. So an example would be, that was shared with me while I was there, person whose whole family comes from, they're totally, native. There's the statues, one of the statues is representative of this person's family. So like ancient, connection to that land and culture. And they explained that like when, and of course this is shifting because the modern world is coming, there's cars on the island now, that's fairly recent. But all that to say, when, two people have a child, it's not just those two people's responsibility. That child becomes the responsibility of the community. It's a shared experience, a shared family, a multi-partner dynamic in that context. There aren't words like consensual non-monogamy and things like that. It's just that's how you family. That's how you raise kids. That's how you relate. And there's pros and cons, of course, like there is with anything. But I've always found that really interesting, like just those inherent differences and how it's so easy to think that how you've been raised and what you're around is the way. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think travel is so, so, so important. Not even just with sexuality and relationships, just understanding the world in different ways is so valuable. And that's actually also why I say, like, even if you decide you're monogamous, learning about consensual non-monogamy is so beneficial, because then once you understand you understand relationship dynamics as a whole, you're learning relational skills. You can actually make the choice of monogamy instead of it being a compulsory like obligation. You know yourself and you're choosing it. And all of those skills and everything that you've learned about also consensual non-monogamy benefits your relationship structure. It's the same thing as travel to me. Learn more.
I love that. How have you seen seasons change for people in different phases of their lives with relation to their sexuality? Age-wise, like what states people are in and factors, external factors shaping their relationship with what it means to be monogamous or non-monogamous, consensually non-monogamous.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of folks from older generations have a lot of interest in it as they age, because there's an expansion that happens. You've shared life if they've been in a monogamous relationship for so long that it's what I've had shared by clients of mine that have been together for 40, 50 years. Like, there's just so much life that you've experienced being with another person. Why would that one thing be the end all be all?
End all be all mean
of the relationship.
Could it ruin? Why would it ruin?
Yeah, why would that one thing? Why is that the thing?
Yeah,
that's the hill to die on. And yes, of course, there's a conversation around consensual or not, and is that was that experience more of a symptom of something else that they needed to work, that kind of a thing. But why we've given so much importance to this concept of having sex with multiple people or having love with multiple people? Why is that one component of relationship the end all be all?
Yeah. Well, my first thought is religion.
Not wrong. So a lot of people, I love again, language. Traditional relationships is a term you'll hear a lot.
Yeah.
So that's non-monogamy. Monogamy as a structure is fairly recent in our history, and I'm not going to sit here and say what's natural and not natural.
Right.
The human animal is capable of monogamy and non-monogamy. Mm-hmm. What's amazing is that we have it as a choice. So it can be an orientation, and it can also be a choice. So rewind, monogamy is only about 10,000 years old as a structure. Came in with agriculture, had more to do with land ownership, lineage, all that. Then the church, not religion, I want to say very specifically, the church as an organization took that attached morality to it, and now we kind of get the version of monogamy that we have here now. Mm-hmm. So you're not wrong.
Well, yeah, and I just was jumping from A to Z, whatever. But so you said that older couples are expressing interest in the potential there. And do you work with younger people?
Yeah, I would say my client age range is, let me look, early 30s to early 60s.
I still have the feeling like everybody wants to be in a relationship.
Again, define relationship.
I feel like everybody wants to have a primary partner.
Okay, and why do you feel that way?
I think that's what I see all the time.
Is that what you see because those are the circles you're choosing to move in and the lens through which you're seeing things?
I don't know if it's the circles that I choose to move in, but I just have the impression that that's what's occurring all the time.
That's most of what's represented. If we're just looking at, media, things like that, how can you speak a language you've never been taught? So yeah, there's more representation, but what was the study that came out? Forget the title of the study, the singles study that Match.com funds through the Kinsey Institute. 31% of singles have at some point been in some version of consensual non-monogamy.
31% of contemporary singles?
Yes. So the idea that it's some crazy, far-flung, far reaches of society, very minimal, is just wholly and completely inaccurate. Accessibility and visibility is more limited because there's very real-world concerns with coming out about alternative relationship dynamics. There's no protections for families. You can lose your home, you can lose your job, you can lose custody, you can lose healthcare. There's no protections. So it's a very real consideration on who to come out to, why, and when. It's an unfortunate reality, but just because you don't see something doesn't mean it's not there. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if you have the desire to have that relationship that way. There are plenty of people who experience hierarchical dynamics, and there's plenty of people who experience non-hierarchical dynamics. When you understand all that's available, you can have a better understanding of your needs, and then you can build a relationship that actually works for you. Stop being so concerned about what other people may or may not be doing. Value what your needs are and prioritize building the relationship that supports that.
I'm open to this being presumptuous, but to me, there's a sense that I don't deserve ethical non-monogamy. I'm not that special.
Oh, goodness.
Like it's like only the special people, the hyper special people are qualified to be ethically non-monogamous because they're so irresistible that it's unreasonable to think that they should have to. Now, you're a lucky schlub if you can trick anybody to like hang with you for a longer period of time. It's a cartoony thought, but it's a thought.
It is a thought. It sure
but
is
you know
a
what
thought.
I'm saying? Like, it seems like, okay, that's so fancy. Like somebody who thinks they're going to be ethically non-monogamous, wow, they must really think they're too good for a relationship.
That's an interesting, what's the word? That's an interesting, oh God, what is the word? Something excludes something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, if they want that, then
Mutually
that must mean they do.
exclusive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea that like, if somebody wants, consensually non-monogamous dynamics, they must not want a relationship, which in your words is something, committed, ongoing, in depth. Incorrect. Consensual non-monogamy is not a synonym for casual dating. You can date casually, monogamously, or non-monogamously. You can be in a committed relationship monogamously or non-monogamously. Those are agreements. They're not, does that make sense?
I'm very uneducated here.
Yeah,
so.
that's okay.
Yeah, okay, good. I need to
I'm
hear
not
that.
easily offended at all.
I think that it seems reasonable to think that I could have meaningful relationships with multiple people at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, but it also seems like that's not really what people are comfortable with.
The people that you've.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't know like accessing that world of like what I don't know what the dating app is for people who are ready to be outwardly
there are a number
ethically
of them.
non-monogamous. Yeah.
And some of the big ones are actually like the Hinges and the Tinders of the world. Like they've expanded how you choose, what you're looking for to include consensual non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy, same thing. Polyamory, et cetera, which is really cool to see. And that's to me such a marker of to your earlier question, what's changed? Mm-hmm. That there's even that acknowledgement of you can choose that. Now, how knowledgeable the person selecting ENM actually is another conversation entirely. Right. But just the availability of it, the accessibility of the language in the mainstream like that is exciting to me. There's plenty of work to still be done, but it's progress to me.
Don't you think that the majority of people are going to be suspect of somebody who has that listed on their profile, though? They might say the platform might expand to include the language, but aren't people going, oh, yeah, right? Like, isn't that going to automatically eliminate consideration for a lot of people if they see that? Isn't that a red flag to list that publicly?
I think it's more of a red flag to me if somebody is writing off people entirely based on a label they might not even understand themselves before even talking about what that means to the person.
Thank you. Are there common attributes for people who you've seen be successful in ethically non-monogamous relationships? And are there, on the contrary, common attributes for people who can't pull it off?
Yeah, definitely. I would say a willingness to be uncomfortable, an acceptance of the reality that you're going to be uncomfortable in life periodically.
People seek their relationships to be comfortable.
Well, yeah, great. If you don't want to ever grow or change or be challenged or surprised, that sounds boring, but that's a choice. I think that you're going to be uncomfortable in your life. Your relationship is a safe place. Uncomfortable and unsafe are not synonyms either. So your relationship, yes, should absolutely be a safe space. But there's so many things in life that are going to make you uncomfortable. A sudden job loss, health issues, family dynamics, all kinds of stuff. So your relationship needs to be a safe space to which you can bring those uncomfortable experiences. And so when you're introducing other variables like potential other partners, things like that, more novelty sexually, whatever that is, it has to be a space that you can be uncomfortable in safely. You can't be a relationship that, If I'm scared of how my partner's going to judge me or react, so I'm just going to like not say anything, that's not a safe relationship. I need to be able to know that in both directions, that my partner is someone who can go, oh, you know what? I really don't like that. This is very unpleasant. Let's look at that. But I also need to be that person who's like, wow, I was not expecting that. And of course, obviously there's emotions and things happening too, but the ability to be with that instead of everything trying to avoid that. You're avoiding, honestly, bids for connection. That discomfort, that is an opportunity for intimacy. To really be together in that is powerful. Instead of trying to avoid it, push away. You did this to me. Like, wow, this is wildly uncomfortable. I was not expecting this. Let's figure out a way through together.
Tailing off of that and not expecting an answer that is definitive at all, what do you think causes sickness in the body? Do you have any feelings about where disease or sickness comes from?
I've always loved, where did I hear this? Just breaking down, I love words again. So like breaking down words, dis-ease, right? So your body is wildly advanced. It's going to deal with things, whether you want to deal with it consciously or not. So if you want to repress things, great. It's going to process it a different way. And that can look like disease. Absolutely. Emotions are literal chemical reactions in our body. Chemicals create reactions in our body. So it is a literal physical experience. Why wouldn't it have physical consequences?
Where do you find beauty, commonplace beauty? Like, beauty's pleasurable to you? Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
So where do you find what's beautiful to you?
Moments like this, honestly. Like being able to explore with someone or explore someone. Getting asked questions that confuse me sometimes or make me look at something a little differently or reflect on something I thought I understood. Being able to be quiet in between those moments and just be with another person, honestly, is beautiful to me.
Yeah. What kind of colors are in your world? Do you have a certain color palette or do you? Yeah. So tell us about your colors.
Oh man, I'm just laughing because part of my schooling way back in the day was art student, and all my fellow classmates they just did not get it. Everyone was into these like big, bright, bold patterns and colors and metallics and all this stuff, and I was just like as you can see, muted tones. It's just always been the like mauves and the olive greens and the like just off of center of whatever that color is. I just love it.
Do you ascribe meaning to our dreams? Do you think of dreams as a tool or something that we can really gain applicable, practical knowledge from our own dreams?
Yeah, I think they're it's like we take the bumpers off, like a bowling alley. We're just meaning making machines. That's all our brain does. It finds story, creates meaning out of things. Nothing has meaning. Everything is meaningless, but also everything is meaningless. So we get to apply whatever meaning we want. And our dreams are the subconscious, just like moving all those ideas and everything through without the hindrance of self-judgment or anything. It's like a playground for our subconscious to work through the things we've tried to sort of like organize because we're big fancy adults and things have to look a certain way. And then we go to sleep and our brain goes, my turn.
Do you ever write your dreams down?
I do. I go in and out of that practice. It's funny because like when I do, I definitely remember them more. And I like to look for sort of like maybe thematic patterns because again, I'm a meaning making machine. I look for patterns, but I think I do my best to hold them with a loose grip and just see, is there anything interesting that's worth reflecting on? I don't add meaning in that. Oh, if I'm dreaming this thing, I'll phrase it this way. So something I teach is the difference between fantasy and desire. So fantasy is pure imagination, our dreams in a sense. It's, it can turn us on, whatever that is. If we're speaking, let's speak sexually about it. So fantasy is something in our minds, pure imagination that turns us on. just because we're fantasizing about something doesn't necessarily mean we actually want to live it out in our life. That takes motivation, and that's what takes it into desire. So conscious mind to me is desire. I'm choosing to think this, I'm acting it out. The dream is the fantasy. It's just working stuff out. So I try not to ascribe meaning to like, oh, well, if I'm dreaming about X, Y, Z, and I judge that as bad, I'm now a bad person because I'm having those terrible thoughts. It's fantasy. So that's it. What's in there for me to look at? It has nothing to do with my assessing value as a person or anything like that.
Can you speak to instances where you have utilized psychedelics for either recreational or personal medicinal use? Are you comfortable sharing about that a little bit?
Yeah. I laugh because I've tried. I pretty much only work with psilocybin.
Uh-huh.
And I say work with because I've tried to be recreational and it's just not for me. Like cool. I can't, no matter how little we're going to get some work done. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah. I want to just watch this concert.
Like, not possible.
Yeah.
So I understand that's what it is. It is very much a medicine for me. It fundamentally changed the way my brain works in some really important ways. I grew up dealing with a lot of depression and very much being ruled by my emotional experience. And I'll never forget my first, hero dose trip, journey, whatever you want to call it. I built a new neural pathway. Like, it was wild.
You were aware of it while it was happening?
I didn't know that's what it was. But like reflecting on it after, my brain around a specific thing, like intrinsic to my human experience, works differently than it did before that experience. Like I said, I used to be sort of ruled by my emotional experience, very reactive. And to me, psychedelics don't give you anything, like they work with you, right? So if I hadn't already been doing some personal work, et cetera, I don't know that this would have been accessible to me, but it felt like sort of a culmination of years of personal growth and development finally clicked into gear. I had, because honestly, I didn't know I was going on this journey. I didn't realize the dose. That's on me. And when I realized what was happening, I had sort of this, like, I'll relate it to dating apps since we were talking about that. It was sort of like this profile popped up of like, you can freak out now. You're really good at, you know how to do that. This is familiar. This is an option for you. If you would like to go down this road, swipe right. And it was just like, oh, actually, no, thank you. Like literally was my experience of just like, what's another, I actually don't want, no. And so it's like, you can, lean in. This can be an easeful experience. It'll be new. There'll be, and I was like, yeah, let's try that. And I literally is what happens more often than not for me when something new, unexpected, big change, something like that will come up. It's like, which option? And sort of, I'm going to go down that. That's the one. It is wildly structurally, fundamentally different than how my brain worked around that kind of thing before that experience.
So you're saying that's been a lasting because of a new neural pathway that was built.
So I definitely, after that experience, it was something I did like quarterly, every 3 to 6 months, I would do like a ceremony and a guided, experience. And I found that really nurtured and kept that neural pathway consistent. And I just trusted, the wisdom of my body to let me know when it was time for another session. If I noticed maybe that new behavior wasn't as easy to access, okay, it's time to sit down again and kind of practice this. And then it would be like muscle memory almost. And then just as the years went by, like I've just realized recently I haven't sat for at least a year. And I've had a couple experiences recently where I've realized like, it's time to sit down. So I'm looking forward to that shortly. But it's gonna be a new chapter with that, which I'm really curious about. I know it's very cryptic, but there's something very specific that wants to be worked on right now. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, I'd love to get a report if you have a moment to share when the time comes.
Sure.
Before we conclude, if I may, I did share that I was visiting with you and I had a couple of audience questions to relate.
Yeah.
So
I love that. What's
the success rate of shifting into a non-monogamous relationship from a monogamous one?
I know people want that so bad. The statistics we have are around the generally accepted relationship structure of monogamy. And the other statistic we have is infidelity. So
Wow.
unfortunately, we don't have hard, fast numbers right now as far as this many, because it's not a widely accepted or safe relationship dynamic for a lot of people. So hopefully now that we're having a bigger, wider conversation, we'll start gathering those numbers. There was just released a 20-year study, I believe. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it was looking at sort of like family dynamics, children, things like that, and the qualitative more than quantitative aspect of it. But I'll try and find that and see if there's anything a little closer. But all that to say, rather than looking at the specific structure of a relationship, monogamy, non-monogamy, polyamory, what have you, what are the qualities of whichever relationship? Is a relationship successful just because you've been together for 50 years? What if you've been arguing and at each other's throats for 50 years? Is that success? So look at how you define success first before maybe getting caught up in sort of like the numbers. Because I'd want to know, I'm assuming that question is, what's the success rate? Like how long does it? That's not how I measure success. Sorry, it's not a concise answer.
No, it's that you did a great job. Thank you so much. What would you recommend to a couple who have never dated and want to start dating as non-monogamous?
They're together. They are interested in dating other people. Or you just have the question.
What do you recommend to a couple who have never dated and want to start? They've never dated anybody else.
So, I'll try and include it because there's a couple variables on that. So, when a couple decides to open up, there's different ways to open up. So it can be, we're going to have an open relationship, which means, we'll create agreements around us having other sexual experiences, but, here and there intermittently, or maybe we only have experiences with other people together, or we're okay. We only have it when we're separate, or both. Those are sort of the different kind of ways that can look. There can be agreements around the sexual experience of it as well as the emotional experience. So for some people, this is a purely sexual curiosity. Like I love having one core emotional partner, but I have a high need for sexual novelty. So we create an agreement where we can play sexually with other people, but maybe never the same person over and over, so no emotions develop, that kind of thing. So again, this is the power of understanding relationship dynamics, creating relationship agreements. So for a couple that's new, I would get really clear on each of your hierarchy of exclusivity, as I call it, for your emotional needs and your sexual needs, which are different. They can be related, but they are different needs. So you may have a high need of emotional exclusivity, like I was just talking about, but a low need for exclusivity sexually, or vice versa, or high for both, low for both. That will help you kind of understand a general relationship structure that could work for you. And get really, really clear on those agreements before practicing anything. And honestly, my number one tip would be educate yourself, whether it's courses, books, working, with an experienced coach or counselor who is experienced specifically in inclusive relationship dynamics. If I love using this metaphor, if you decide you want to go swimming and you don't just jump into the Pacific Ocean, you seek out lessons, you find a local pool, you practice, you might even decide you actually don't like swimming, but you're learning about it and you can make an actual educated decision. Jumping in both feet blind is a great way to hurt each other. Take it easy, take it slow. The more reluctant partner sets the pace.
Thank you for answering these so much. Last one here. There's a lot more, but I know we're kind of at time. And this kind of gets back to the question I asked earlier about are there some who thrive and some who can't make it? And the question is, who are the ideal candidates for non-monogamy?
Yeah. I'll dispel a myth first. So the idea that I couldn't possibly explore consensual non-monogamy because I get jealous. I'm too jealous. Jealousy is fine. It's okay. Polyamorous people experience jealousy. That's fine. It's just seen as a tool versus something to be avoided. It's just giving you information. Are you experiencing an insecurity? Are you in comparison? Is there a deep-seated distrust in the relationship that needs to be addressed? It's just information. So a green flag would be people, a couple, an individual who is willing and interested in personal growth, honestly. Because all relationships, again, even if you're monogamous, it's an opportunity for personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Ally, I think I would imagine that to me, you're able to humanize things very effectively and with a grace that if I was looking to consult someone who specializes in what you do, that would be heartening for me. So
Aw.
I'll just say thanks on behalf of everyone who is going to engage your services and who has already, like, because people, it's tough to be a human being. It's strange, I think.
Super weird.
It just seems to be strange. Maybe it's not strange, but to me it seems to be strange. And a strange part of this strange experience is, who are you to me? What am I to you? How much of you belongs to me? What can I trust in you? Where am I safe? Where am I unsafe? How deep have I met myself? How deep have I worked to really see and meet you? And it's all big conversations, but I think that last bit of, you've alluded to it today, like, you have to be willing to, like, consider it. You have to be willing to consider it, or else it's going to go off the rails, especially when it comes to this thing that we're so used to holding in a particular guard, our sexual dynamic and our sexual identity.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of gratitude for the work that you do, and I'm really grateful that you came on and took a chance and came to have this podcast at this time, and also before you're making big life moves as well. So if you would leave our audience with details about how to find you and your work.
Sure. I'm pretty easy to find. Passport to Pleasure, and that's the number 2, numeric. Passport2pleasure.com. It's Passport to Pleasure on Instagram, TikTok. Well, TikTok for now. On Substack, YouTube. I create tons of free written and video content on my Substack and YouTube because I want people to have access to this information. But honestly, my website is, the core brings together all of those access points. So Passport, the number 2, pleasure.com.
Ally Iseman, it's been my pleasure to have you on Mindbend.
Thank you so much.